Hey, we're back! So as you know, the S22 Ultra has been out for almost 2 months now, and there have been tons of updates since its launch. And I think it's safe to presume that the overall performance of this phone is now stable. So why don't we bring this relatively new kit to go up against what I think is the smartphone camera champ right now, the iPhone 13 Pro Max. But first, let's do a quick spec recap. The S22 Ultra has a quad camera setup with a 108 megapixel main, 12 megapixel ultra wide, 10 megapixel 3x zoom, and another 10 megapixel telephoto, but this time with 10 times zoom. And on the other side, the iPhone 13 Pro Max with triple camera setup, 12 megapixel main, 12 megapixel ultra wide, and 12 megapixel 3x telephoto. That's a pretty boring number, not gonna lie, but numbers don't always reflect the quality of the camera, so let's jump into the comparison right now. The first thing I noticed is that the photo from the S22 Ultra came out a little wider than the iPhone. And that's because the focal length on the S22 is 24mm versus 26 on the iPhone. And we will see this throughout the comparison. Both photos came out looking really good and actually look really close to each other, but if we look closely we will see the differences in color. Like the offering furnace on the Samsung looks really vibrant red, that makes it look more pop, while the red on the iPhone is just red that doesn't pop, which is actually true to life. Moving up is the color of the leaves. It's a deeper and more saturated green than the leaves on the iPhone. And if we take a closer look at the detail, we will see the leaves on the S22 Ultra looks grainy. And that's because Samsung added a lot more digital sharpening that it makes it look like a digital camo. And this photo bears similar result. But this time Samsung exposed for a slightly brighter photo to compensate for the shadow area, resulting in a little overexposed highlight. The iPhone did not do this and the highlight isn't blown, but the darker shadow areas are pretty much crushed on the iPhone. So what about in a not so good lighting condition? Well, in this picture the S22 has a warmer tone while the iPhone stays neutral. And this time the S22 looks a little more accurate, but there is this super obvious purple fringing on the light here. It's not a deal breaker, but it kinda looks annoying. And for the details, the two are very comparable with similar details and noise throughout the photos. I would say I like the S22 Ultra more. And here's another low light photo. First of all, I like the one on the iPhone more this time because of the high contrasty look. This time the S22 photo looked really flat and I felt like it lacked contrast quite a bit. And for accuracy, the upper half looked more like the iPhone and the lower half looked more like the S22 Ultra. And for details, the iPhone is slightly better than the S22 Ultra. And in an even more challenging situation, both phones still performs really good. The details are once again neck to neck. Samsung has a slight edge on the highlights and the iPhone did a better job at the darker area. And for the color, the iPhone has a greenish tint to it while the S22 has a slight magenta tint, as you can see in the sky. But as we turn on the night mode, the iPhone turned even more green. But in return, we see the improved detail to the point that it even beat the S22 Ultra in the highlight. The S22 tone looked more neutral this time, but the sky still has a slight magenta shift to it, while the sky on the iPhone is greenish yellow. I'll give a win to the Samsung this time. Now let's get into zooming. For the short 3x zoom, I would give the win to the iPhone because not only it did take a better photo, but the zoom goes a little further. Like very little. At first glance, both phones look very similar, but we will see that the iPhone is a bit more contrasty, and when we zoom into the detail we will see more differences. The S22 added slightly more sharpening again, making the iPhone looks a bit more natural. But the S22 isn't far behind. However, in a more challenging condition, we will see that the iPhone shoots better photos. The details are better on the iPhone and the text are a bit sharper as well. The white balance on the iPhone makes the light look neutral white, while the S22 makes it more warm. But what it actually looks like is something in between. So overall I'd say the iPhone win, but just by a hair. But not for long, because anything further than 10 times will be the expertise area of the S22 Ultra. Samsung takes all the win, a big win, on anything above 10x. It's 10th time optical zoom, while anything beyond 3 times, the iPhone is digitally zoomed. The zoom is so good that I felt comfortable saying 30 times zoom is usable. For food photography in a decent lighting, I'm surprised that the two looks really comparable. They are nearly identical in both details and color. You really have to pixel peep, then you will see that the Samsung has a little more contrast, but in the end they both look equally appetizing. It's a tie this time. However, in low light food photography, Samsung really shines. The S22 boosts the saturation and contrast to make it look more appealing, while the iPhone says, nah, neutral is my way. I'll give this to the S22 Ultra. For portrait mode, the two took a completely different approach. Here, just by looking at the whole picture, I would prefer the one on the S22 Ultra because it looked more pop to the eyes. That's because Samsung again added more contrast and saturation. However, the color on the iPhone looks more accurate. The white on the building is white, not yellow, and for skin tone, I like the one on the S22 more. But that's just me, and for details, the iPhone wins easily. Because this photo uses 3 times camera, and the 3 times zoom on the iPhone has a better sensor. This photo shows even more differences. The bokeh on the iPhone has some depth to it while it looks kinda flat on the S22. Plus, the background isn't even blurred. And yes, the iPhone look underexposed, but the highlights are not blown versus the S22 Ultra where it's just plain white. Well, this depends on what you're going after, but for me, I will give the win to the iPhone. For low light portraits, I have no idea what's happening here. The skin tone on the S22 is totally messed up and there are very little detail to be seen. The iPhone simply wins this time because of the better color accuracy and a better detail. And for non-human subject, Samsung is better at background separation, as you can see in the tip of the leaves here. Only the tip got blurred on the S22. The iPhone did a pretty good job, but it's still a step behind. The camera on the S22 Ultra is really good, with great details throughout the lenses, and I had a really great time taking photos on the S22 Ultra, especially the telephoto cameras. And on top of that, it has tons of features, more than the iPhone, both useful and gimmicky of course. And Samsung really took the zoom game up another level this year. Even though it's still 100 times zoom, it's a better 100 times zoom than its predecessor. And it's better than any phone in the market right now. But even with that much fun with the S22 Ultra, I personally think the iPhone 13 Pro Max still has a more predictable camera. Like, I know what the photo will look like 90% of the time, including the crush shadow in low light. But maybe that's because I've got months with this phone. Maybe if I use the S22 Ultra for 6 months, it could be more predictable. I just have to continue using it. I'll try to keep you updated. Both phones are good in their own way, and I like both of them, just differently. What about you? What do you think about the two? Do you prefer the flat look on the iPhone? Or do you like the adventurous camera on the S22? Leave your thoughts down below, and press like if you like this video, and sub if you want more comparison videos like this. And that's it for now, see you guys next time, bye!